If I told you the founder competing with the Knot clocks into his cybersecurity job every Monday morning. He studied psychology at Georgia State University, not computer science. He taught himself how to code, he worked his way through Home Depot, T-Mobile, Pluto TV, and currently he's a senior software engineer at a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ. And he's the CEO of his own startup. He rebranded it, filed the trademark, went to market by sponsoring halal food festivals right here in Atlanta. 167 ticket sales, 88 vendor applications, 101 business profiles, and the first $20,000 in platform revenue. All of it while being still employed full-time. But here's the harder part. He was not building for strangers first, he was building inside his own community, where trust is earned under scrutiny, where your name is on the line before the product is even finished, and where the gap between what you promise and what you deliver is very visible. Most founder podcasts tell you about the leap. This one is about the climb before the leap. The version almost no one talks about because it's harder and less heroic and more honest. I'm interviewing Faraz Ahmed, the CEO of Cenvi, and he's building a playbook for the version of entrepreneurship most of us actually live. This is Dreams of Muslim Entrepreneurs. For someone hearing your name for the first time, who are you, what do you do, and who do you serve?
Yeah, awesome question, and thanks for the sweet intro. My name is Faraz. Background, like you said, was in psychology, and I kind of switched over to software because my family's all in IT. Super disappointed in the psychology life, unfortunately, and culturally. And it was just ended up being more practical for me, honestly, to get into software. So I self-taught myself. I didn't do a traditional background in it. But I studied for about a year or two, got my first break at Home Depot, was in the field for about a decade, and also in the meanwhile was very active in this community. If you recall, back in college, I was kind of everywhere. I was bouncing everywhere. I was leading MIST, I was leading MSA, working with ISNA and several other Muslim organizations. And so I got really quickly adept in the event space, the chaos, the fragmentation, almost the horror of planning everything, and the disorganization and the distrust that can bring if you don't organize it, if you don't capture it and do it very well. And so, where I'm today basically is I've had a decade in the field, both in software and in that event space. And I was like, why not consolidate all that knowledge into something that is actually useful for both businesses and also, normal everyday people who are trying to plan their event that may not have the understanding of I need to plan a large capacity event like a wedding. I don't know what goes into this. And then they find out and they're in such stress and pain, often finding out with their families and parents who are involved with them. And that's just not a good experience.
What was your dream when you were graduating Georgia State University back in 2015? Because transitioning from a psychology background into tech, it's a little bit different, right? I don't think most CEOs of most companies have a psychology degree, unless they're in the mental health space or somewhere else, or maybe organizational psychology. But do tell me, what was your actual dream when you were graduating?
For sure. So for me, I definitely wanted to stick in psychology. I wanted to get a PhD in clinical psychology. I wanted to go to Stanford, and I wanted to become a scholar psychologist. I wanted to have both, the skill set of doing good psychological evaluations, doing counseling, maybe research in the space for Muslims specifically, particularly with depression. And then I also wanted to do something, to have the Islamic knowledge component of it. And I think that when it became a little more practical, your parents are getting old, and I had already kind of had this background. I had been doing IT stuff on the side. While during college, I've been working full time. I was always hustling since 15, 16. I've always been doing full-time work, and that's why maybe sometimes you probably didn't see me at certain times. I was working 40, 56 hours a week, Geek Squad, Publix, different kind of odd jobs. And I also did online software e-commerce stuff. For eBay, I had an uncle who had computer business, and he would get parts, and then it would be broken, and I'd have to fix it and everything like that, sell it off. So I already had a little bit of that knowledge hammered into me, and so the transition wasn't too crazy. I think it was just a big hit to my ego, right? Because oftentimes you find you have this dream and you bake that dream into who you're going to be and your identity. And then your identity changes, and especially as something that's like they push you into, and you're like a little bitter almost of like, this is not what I wanted to get into. This is not fair. This is like, it's like they won, and I'm like, dude, who cares? They love me. They want the best for me. They want everything to work out, and so the dream changed. I had to really evaluate during that stage of studying. What did I really want? Did I want stability, or did I want X amount more years of schooling and education, which I think is perfectly fine for some individuals and everything? Was it the right fit for me? And I had to challenge that. And that was hard.
Walk me back to Parkview High School in Lilburn. What kind of kid were you, and what was your family's posture and towards ambition and work?
Good question. So, the kind of kid I was, I didn't have any friends. My main friends that I had were my two cousins, one in Alabama, one in South Carolina. They're the only people I saw, the values that I kind of grew up with. So I didn't really have that many people I knew. There were some people at college, in high school that I, specifically at school, that like I was pretty friendly with and they were good with me, but I was never able to bring them home. I don't know, like it was such a huge, the way my parents were, which like a lot of people in our culture are, they just see like the pedigree of like who are their parents, what's the background, and interview them, get the parents involved. And I was like, man, this is so awkward. Like I'm not going to do that. So I just chose not to have a social life because it was just too challenging, and I was fine with that, honestly. Like it felt good to be, as people said, hidden and under a rock. As far as ambition goes, my family is very cautiously ambitious. Like they want you to be the doctor, they want you to be the high-level engineer, or like, oh, you're doing this, great, but why don't you become like a PhD, MD? Why don't you? My dad always like, it doesn't matter what point in my career, even today, he just said to me last week, you can still be a doctor. Like, so it's like, it doesn't really matter. It comes from a good place, and also the reputational good stuff as well. And but the concept for our family is really big of helping people, and the concept is really like, with ambition, do something good with that ambition. So, but there's a fear of like, okay, if the ambition is too great without the stability there, it
can lead to issues.
Yeah,
for sure.
Like my family definitely isn't business. Let's put it that way. Like that kind of ambition from that paradigm is very different for them because it doesn't follow a traditional A to Z path that they're familiar and comfortable with. That like, hey, in America, you go to school, you go to high school, you go to college, get your good degree, especially in these two particular fields, you're straight. You'll be good. You'll be taking care of your family. What else do you need? So.
Long before Cenvi, what parts of your identity were already fixed? Builder, provider, Muslim competitor, observer, which ones had to be forged later under pressure?
All of it. I think out of high school, because I didn't have many social constructs or people to challenge me and stuff, everything was all ideas and novelty. It was all like this big dream of wanting to do a lot. My dad is somebody, like the one thing that I did have was this huge desire to help people. My dad is really big on helping the world and sacrificing, his life, his health, everything, overworking 80 hours a week. So I had that fundamental, and I wanted to do something with it. But then it's like, you have all these ideas and you feel insecure. I got into college and I went to MSA, and I remember thinking like everyone was so different for me, especially growing up in Gwinnett. There was this kind of two sides of the community where it felt like there were the children of scholars maybe that I felt like I felt value oriented with, but I didn't have the knowledge to fit in with them. And there were other people that had different lifestyle choices, which is totally straight, but like it didn't match my value sets necessarily. So then I was stuck in the middle between the two. And so I would say that college was one of the most transformative, incredible experiences because it gave me a platform to, they say fake it till you make it, right? Yeah. But it was like authentic. It was very much like I was genuinely excited to meet everybody because everybody was amazing. I don't know if you recall, but I used to bounce around. I used to be like, oh my God, I met this guy. This guy's so amazing. And it was just like I met millions of friends, everyone with different ideas, and they pushed against me, and it was just like incredible.
No, I can totally empathize and totally sympathize also with that sentiment. From 2014 to 2016, you served as the regional director of MIST, or which is known as the Muslim Interest Scholastic Tournament, here in Atlanta. For listeners who don't know what MIST is, what did running that actually teach you about leading people and even running an event?
Huge responsibility. I think that. So I was kind of thrust into it. I started off organically as a volunteer, and I was just like super hyper. And then people pushed me into it, and it was such an honor. And then I felt a weight of like, oh, okay, I need to make really good decisions. And because when there's people underneath you and there's an expectation that you do really well, regardless of what state you're in. So now you're running this organization that has been there for about a decade at this point, and now you're handling money and finances that at that point I had never run. Like, you know, maybe like an average event at that time was 30 grand, right? Yeah. Now I'm a 20-year-old trying to like handle financially an event, and then also all these volunteers, all these adults, all these coaches in a responsible way, and coordinate with all these different people. And I think I was a bit unprepared for how that was, but people don't care. Like, it's like at the end of the day you have to make it work. So that, I think that's one thing. The financial thing is that thing that stands out the most. I was wholly underprepared for, of like, you know, how I can defer something to somebody else to enable, you know, like make sure this thing gets worked out, and then I need to also be on top of it as leader. Any mistakes you make, it all comes back on you.
When you look back at a younger version of yourself, what was ambition actually made of for you? Was it security, status, freedom? Was it service? Was it providing something or proving something, or some less flattering combination of it all?
Definitely a combination of everything, to be honest. But I think, like everyone, obviously, you want to be recognized for things you do. That was lesser on my stuff than, say, serving others. Like, the mission has always been huge to me. That's the only thing that propelled me to do anything in life. But also freedom. That's been so compelling. Mm-hmm. Like, since I've been working since 15 or 16, and then, you know, working for somebody else, I've had always this concept of like, man, I want the power to do moves, to be able to help who I want on my time. Because I've always seen my dad in that state of like, my dad has worked so hard for so many people, and the thing that he always traded was his life, health, and time. Mm-hmm. And if you have the freedom, what could you do with it? Mm-hmm. It would be amazing, you know. It's like, yeah. So
you graduated from Georgia State University with a psychology degree. How on earth did you end up as a software engineer at Home Depot 2 years later?
Yeah, so interesting story. I was working as a network administrator for Vonage, and this is while I was at school. And because I had been taught that by my uncles, they were amazing. They're always trying to take care of me, and they always want to teach me at any time they got of at least like, whether it's not specifically software, but it's still IT related. Mm-hmm. So I was learning that. I had that job, and then a scholar teacher that I was working with at MSA, he came up to me, and we, you know, he was starting a school. Mm-hmm. If you can I mention the name? Or?
Yeah, go for
it.
Yeah,
Mufti Samir, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And so, you know, he used to do a lot of events. Him and his brother, Milana Fazan, really sweet. Like, used to come out all the way to campus in Georgia Tech and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I remember this thought came to my mind of like, if I don't study right now, mm-hmm. Islamic education has nothing to do with computer science, but I'm heading there. Then when will I ever have time to do it? I have the time of the presidency right now, so I quit my job. I quit like my first stable job as for Vonage, working as a network administrator, and you know, I was making like what, 40K, but still it was like my first proper job, and I quit that to go making like maybe like $900 a month. Ooh. At an Islamic school, and I went to go live there, so I could study and then also like, you know, be in that environment and grow. And while I was there, I ended up doing 1 million businesses with them. I ended up doing a lot of different things. Also, I was like the principal of the school and everything like that. And I started studying software. I was like, I need a practical means of like getting myself some skill sets that will be valuable, because now I've left the educational route and it's like that. I'm not, you know, and I've left, like I'm doing this, but I need something proper. So I started studying software every day, about 15 hours a day. Like, while there, it was crazy. Like, I would work, and then I would just all morning, all night. That's all I did, because I was desperate. I was like, man, I need to hustle. So I would code and build.
Where did that desire come from? Was that because the income was the issue, or like, I mean, because what was preempting you to go that direction altogether? At
that point in my life, I was 23, 24. I had very commonly heard with my family and everybody else of like, even at the age of 19 or 20, how come you haven't graduated yet? And you know, why aren't you helping your dad? Because you know, my dad has touched the lives of so many different people, and he's helped so many different individuals. It's like, you should be ready by now to take care of him. And so that really drove me. That drove me like crazy of like, man, you know, he's going to lose his health. And he did, unfortunately, like later on. I mean, he's alive, but like, you know, just, he suffered neuropathy and some other issues and stuff. But so I didn't get in there in time, you know, unfortunately, right? Often with your the people you want to help or save, right? You don't get there, but I think there was always that pressure and my own desire of like, hey, I want to be able to help. There was a lot of other family members in need, financial help and stuff like that. So I guess it was kind of related to that stability of my own, of like, you have dreams, but if you don't have the finances to back it up, even a basic thing, you can't do anything. Can't get married. Can't necessarily, like, you're just a nice guy maybe, or theoretically, if even that.
What did you think you actually understood better than the computer science graduates because of your psychology training?
I would say human intent. I'm like, okay, so if you are building something for a given outcome, what is the desire for the people? I mean, people study UI UX design for sure in the college. But I think a lot of the focus has been like maybe the very technical sciencey parts of computer science, right? That is devoid of the human, of like what. And so when people get out into the reality, like when they get out into the field, the reality is like, for example, I got in Home Depot. There was a lot of my peers that graduated with me. They didn't know the first thing about developing an app or coding because they never thought about it. Like, we consume things all the time, every day around us, but we don't understand like what it takes to make this easy for somebody and to signal the intent to make it transparent. And also the skill set behind that as well. Like, and so there's a lot of people, I actually knew that because that's the way I studied it. I studied to build so I had actual practical skill set, which was ironic compared to like somebody else who graduated and then they hadn't really built anything, so they were kind of overwhelmed when they started.
You went from Home Depot to T-Mobile to Pluto TV to currently at Intrusion, 4 very different domains, right? 100%, yeah. What did each environment teach you about scale, failure, and the way real systems behave under load?
100%. So Home Depot was it was the network administrator team. So like it was the largest funded team, the data center, whatever. And for them, it was more internal tooling. So it was like engineers today spent 2-3 weeks getting another engineer like from our team to go do something. And so my job was automation. So like, this takes too long, let them do it themselves basically. So for that standpoint, it was the scale or the opportunity was amazing. Like I was hired for one particular thing, and by the time I left, I had made 11 independent apps over there. And I had published them, and I had like, I got like a reputation for like self-starting, doing things really well, and then collaborating with different teams to make this published and get out there. And one of the reasons I left there is because I felt like I had built all these things, and it seemed to be working really well, and a lot of engineers were using it. And I wanted like customer impacting stuff. So that's why I went to T-Mobile. T-Mobile, on the other hand, was a different skill entirely. It was all their billing. So if today you're a T-Mobile customer and you go and like look at your bill online or on your phone app, that was me. Well, it probably has changed by now, but that was me. So all the billing microservices, like the backend systems and then the UI, I did both, full stack. So that scale was crazy because if something breaks, like there's people who are confused, they don't understand what's happening, they're getting failure messages. And you can't do that in a big corporate company like that. And so that's when I got exposed to significant different kinds of technologies like Kafka or other things that in event-driven architecture that I never got at Home Depot, at least at the team that I was at for there. And then Pluto, that was an entirely different beast because that was their entire revenue engine. So Pluto TV, for background, for anyone who doesn't know, is the streaming app, right? But the reason they became billions of dollars and they got bought out by Paramount is because they had the most unique ad-based revenue model that everyone since in the industry took. Like YouTube took it, every competing app, Disney Plus, they took it from Pluto TV. Pluto TV like paved the path forward, and it was very much an interesting environment because it was like a startup. It was a startup owned by Paramount at the time, but it operated in a certain way. And so the things that I built and I worked there were similar to billing. If you failed, it would be really bad reputationally. But in this case, it's also their ad set, the revenue. Like everything is coming out from there. So I learned that you had to be extremely careful how you handle things, the design things that you choose long term, both in terms of UI UX and also the backend implementations, like the logic that you don't even think about. It has to be really robust, otherwise you will screw not just teams, but like other people long term, and you won't be able to monetize.
What did big company engineering give you that most founders don't have, and what did it train you to that you later had to unlearn? So like, for example, you learned something at Home Depot. Did you have to unlearn something when you went into T-Mobile? And did you have to unlearn something when you went to Pluto TV? Was there a certain methodology or way of doing work that fundamentally didn't flow through?
100%. That's a great question. So with Home Depot, I think because of the scale, internal tooling, they have very different needs than external tooling. So for example, if I'm doing full stack, I've done full stack through my whole career, and you're developing something for internal, the copy doesn't have to look that great, or the design doesn't have to go through so much scrutiny through design teams or other stuff. And so, but now there's this greater pressure where when you're releasing something, like there's this term called pixel perfect. It better be great on every, like mobile devices, tablet devices, and the flow and experience matter significantly more. So if internal tooling was all about this needs to work, engineers can figure it out. That's the different customer base. Now customer facing T-Mobile, it's all about, well, this has to be pixel perfect, it has to work really well, it has to be intuitive. Like people need to understand fundamentally why.
You've said publicly that some version of this idea of Cenvi or Bookafy lived in your head for more than a decade.
Yeah.
What kept it alive that long instead of letting it die like most half-formed ideas do?
Great question. So for background, one of the reasons I came up with the idea, and this kind of goes into your question, perhaps. Should I talk?
Yeah,
okay, cool, okay. So is that when I was planning my wedding, it was this extremely frustrating experience, right? You have a venue, you have a caterer, you have a musician, you have a photographer, you have a videographer, and all these different people you have to talk to. And I remember thinking, I have a very limited budget. How am I ever going to find out, like, who do I talk to? A lot of places weren't available, any of the people. And so that was frustrating to begin with. And there was all this gatekeeping. And then by that time I had like a fewer options that were way higher budget than I wanted to. So that frustration never ended though. So I got married after that shortly. And it's kind of like, whether it's a one-off, like, okay, I'm catering an event for something small at my house. Still navigating that route is so different than like what we're used to today with Uber Eats or some other things like that. So that pain point has always been there. And then times like, I'm at an age where I have 2 kids. I have a daughter and a son. Everybody around me has, like a lot of people have like kids around me, and so they're having these birthday parties, 1-year-old birthday party, 2-year-old birthday parties, and they're having the same frustrations at whatever scale they're at, whether it's siblings getting married, whether it's anniversaries, because events kind of run our life, right? We always have something that at some point or another, whether it's a festival, whether it's a sporting event, you have friends or people around you that you gather, and then you need sometimes like some level of like, you want that captured, you need a photographer, want that like food or something, you need a venue because you can't accommodate the space, then you got to coordinate that, and it's frustrating because you got to pay them separately. So I kept hearing about that for year after year, and I was like, and then I saw the Knot, man, you mentioned the Knot, and I remember when it started out, it was so small, and I remember keeping an eye on it. I was like shortly after I came up with the idea, I heard of the Knot, and I was like, oh man, like I wonder how they're gonna do. And then I started seeing them getting big and growing, and now like they're like the leading people in the space. Not in our space, incidentally enough, interestingly, in our space meaning like minority group South Asians, because they don't have that segment. They market explicitly and exclusively towards businesses that are like, you know, like a barnyard rustic wedding or things like that, small scale. And then with our needs and everything, like it doesn't necessarily, they don't accommodate for that. So I guess A, they didn't solve that need. B, that I kept seeing that people were frustrated all around us, including myself, of facilitating and navigating this thing. And so basically last year, I decided that I have enough competency. I can build. I've built for a long time now, and I know the domain knowledge. This is something easy to communicate to people. I can talk about it versus other ideas. I've always had business ideas, and I was like, this one kept calling back to me because I've been in the event space before. I know how frustrating it's been from both sides, as a planner and as a person organizing a large-scale event like Mist. And so, and then we had, you know, because of the volunteer places I've been, I have a lot of connections in the community of like people who have been in this space. So I was like, I just have to get over the hurdle of being scared to try. Let me get out there. But like, if I believe I can actually help, let me get out there. So I did.
Why didn't you start sooner?
Yeah.
right? What in you needed to change before the company could become real? I mean, you had the acumen, the capabilities to do so. I mean, if as soon as you saw the knot, like, and you had the skills, like, what slowed you down here?
It's kind of like, I guess anything else, it was insecurity, honestly. It was a lot of insecurity, and it was like I wanted help. I had done so many businesses by this point that I've experienced. As you know, when you first start a business, it's rough. You have no guiding light necessarily unless you have a mentor, but even then, you kind of have to be self-sufficient, not just in your skill set, but how to be resourceful. Budgeting might be light, things will not go well. How do you explain that to people and stakeholders? And because I've been through that experience, it was good to translate to this scale and this scope, this ambition, versus prior to that, it was this insecurity of like, how could I possibly do this unless I was an incredible salesperson, unless I was a like world-class marketer? All the skills I didn't have were holding me back, versus me focusing on what ended up getting me started is, I'm really great at this one thing. Let me just find amazing co-founders that could help me with the other things while I also learn.
When you first showed the idea to people you trusted, what was the reaction that told you that this was not just a private fantasy anymore?
So yeah, it was interesting. When I first started telling people, especially other vendors, like we started interviewing people last year, right? We started interviewing caterers, event planners. Some of the ones we interviewed, they were a little bit worried.
Why?
They were worried because they were like, are you trying to automate us? And I was like, no, not necessarily, because human connection, you can't really
Automate that.
yeah, you can't automate that. That's beautiful. Like, but if anything, it can enhance something, and it's free for you guys to use. You can use the platform as well. But at least from this perspective, we can see when you're planning on behalf of somebody at a high scale like that, what are you looking for? And then from a vendor perspective, they were like, it just made sense to them. They're like, yo, we're living in an age of Airbnb and Uber Eats. Why don't we have this? Why don't we have this? Like, I don't see this anywhere. And it turns out that a few do exist, but they're very small scale, and they're very segmented markets. And we can talk about that if you want. But so that was cool. Friends and family, they liked the idea. It made sense. It was easy to translate. It was just kind of like, it was just another idea. I'll be honest with you. They weren't that excited. It was like, it was a cool thing, but until I showed them an MVP working, they didn't click, because it was like, this sounds good, but it's just a website, and it was just like, so that's kind of what it was.
Before it was Cenvi, the company was called Bookafy.
Yeah.
Was it I saw a gap in the market story, or I lived this problem personally kind of story where like the change had to happen?
With Bookafy, I really love that name. We came up with it together, me and my other co-founders. And I think what ended up happening is there was already another platform called Bookafy.com, and we had Bookafy.events. And I didn't think much of a trademark or IP kind of stuff. And when we first started consulting with a lawyer, who's local based in Atlanta, his name is Arslan, incredible, amazing individual. And we started consulting with him. And then another individual, he runs the hub, very smart guy, genius guy. His name is Asad Ansari. And he came up to me and he said, you might want to get checked out if this is trademarked or not, because you may have some issues. And it's very interesting because right when we started looking into that, and we got a cease and desist. And it was so scary because I'm like, dude, we just started out. Like we just built this thing, and we're like, oh no, man, this is crazy. So it was almost like, which I'm really grateful to, because it's like when you're working in a business, it's like a marriage or relationship. I would rather have problems in the beginning to see how we all handle it and how things go, and I'd rather see like how we navigate that and what resources do we use. So I'm glad we did it. We did have to change to Cenvi. That was a whole nightmare in itself to think about it, because apparently with trademark law, you have to think about like what's not taken. You can't have partial matches. Then it's like almost everything exists out there. Somebody's bought the domain, and it's like, I didn't know that. It was very frustrating. So then when we came to Cenvi, it was like, V is life, and then Sen was like gathering and community and people. It felt like it really fit in really well. But then it's like something we have to explain to people. Yeah. So there's a trade-off.
So your co-founder, Abdurrahman Darvish, came from Kroger. How did you two actually meet, and why did you pick one another?
I actually have two co-founders. His name is Faraz Ahmed as well. He's my other co-founder, and Actually, there's a fourth. To be honest, his name is Abbas, amazing guy. But I will start with Abdurrahman. Abdurrahman, I have been working with him for about a decade now. When I mentioned some of these organizations, MSA, MIST, he has been with me side by side, like in a lot of the places. So I'm very familiar with him. We have worked together in a lot of really difficult scenarios. We have fielded and handled really difficult questions from people. When we failed together, we have failed together, and we've had to hold each other responsible for that. So in that context, it was one of the reasons I chose him, and I pitched to him with the idea. And I think why he chose me back was we had that familiarity of like, we know that it may not be ideal, everything may not work out, but if we can work together, at least we can be honest with each other. So, it's a risk, right? Like when you are friends with somebody and you know somebody and you work with them, I think the big thing that I look for is if I'm going to work with you, we have to be willing to challenge that relationship, because the outcome really has to be, like, we have to be able to honest with each other.
I've heard the story or saying that you should not always work with your best friends, right?
Yeah.
Does that echo anywhere in this business, or have you found that maybe is not true in the case of this particular business?
I think that. So I think about this all the time, right? And then people have told me that certainly all my life. I'm just that kind of person, okay? First of all, so I want to work with people and work among the people that I love and care about, and I want to give them opportunity. But then that's where the line is. Beyond that, what you have to be willing to risk is, if you're going to do this, is you need to acknowledge, like a mature adult, that something could happen. Just like any marriage, now your finances are tied together. Now your dreams and hopes are tied together. Now there is a potential, very strong potential, where you could be scrutinized by each other, and you may not like what you hear. Like, I could be scrutinized and I'd be like, oh man, I don't like this. So in order to work, if you are okay with the potential for the disruption of that relationship, if you know that the goal that you're working towards is something that you can communicate and you can work through, that's huge. Otherwise, like, I don't think you should get into it. And I know because, I'll give you an example. You may work with a stranger. There's no guarantee that stranger is going to be like any better necessary individual. They can screw you over. That you can get destroyed for. And I've definitely experienced that. I'm sure you have as well in business. And I think that I'd rather it be somebody that I know, and I know, the pros and cons, and same thing with myself, and go through that. Then at least, especially starting out,
it's almost like doing roulette.
Yeah.
Every time you're doing a new business and you're getting some stranger to be a co-founder, it's Russian roulette.
It is. Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas if you know somebody, it's substantially easier.
Mm-hmm. You know somebody, and I think so it can't be just based on the relationship. Like for me also, the fact that we work together, and you have to believe in them. So you have to believe that they have the background and the skill set that, like, okay, so he had a marketing background, he has an MBA, that he has the chops to be able to like pull off the thing. And mashallah, he's a great guy. So I think it has to be both. And then you have to be, again, I keep reiterating this, willing to be like, if things don't work out, be able to step away and be okay with that.
When you create the first MVP, what did you adjust from 1 to 2 to version 3 to version 4? Like, what was the progression and how did it get better?
That's a great question. So I guess one of the big removals was this idea that we needed to focus on all the different things that we wanted to focus on. Like, for example, so we're like a holistic event marketplace in a lot of ways. From the planner perspective, there's like different things. And I think that what we realized early on was that if we didn't focus on one problem type, okay, like catering specifically, right? At least at the forefront, like everyone's welcome and we can learn and we can interview and there's the opportunity for everyone. So finding the common model, right? But then that's such a challenging thing because everyone's venue's pricing model and caterers is very different. A person who has drinks is very different than like the variations and stuff that you want. So then there's like a audacity, like, why would you do that, So I think we had to limit where I was trying to build for everybody, and I had to limit it down to like, let me build for one and make sure this works first. And it was interesting though, while saying that, the one ended up being festivals. It was very funny. So like, because we had the capability for payments and other stuff already built in, and we wanted to have a booth at one particular festival. And Abdurrahman actually, he was in contact with them for a booth, and they found out about us and that we have ticketing on our platform because I was doing it for community support. Like there's this amazing facility over here called One Ummah. Yeah, amazing, you know, and they were having a ticket event, and that was our first event that we ever did. We went to a booth. It was free, you know, we didn't charge anything, but it was exciting. And I was like, if I have a platform, let me just build for that and let me do it. So it was additive in that sense, but it gave us our first like real people to use it, not just that event. And then it gave us our first customer, first person who's actually using it to get paid revenue through. And that person, like we focused so much on that exclusively then. We focused on like this, it helped us iron out our payment stuff. What is a good payment flow that makes sense for them? And what is the way that receipts need to be handled, their transaction history. Onboarding was so complicated. It was like an hour before. Oof. So that was crazy. And because I wanted, you know, like everyone to fill out everything. Like, okay, if you think about it, there's the payment profile stuff. There was things like packages where you could have like what you're offering. It all sounds great in theory, but it's like so much information. Like think about, you have your website, everything you could possibly have on that for your like Walmart. It's like, I'm telling you to fill it out on onboarding. And I didn't realize until we had customer engagement that like, that's probably not a good idea. You know, that's not like, you only need to get the base thing, what you need to get them started, and then you go from there. Yeah. So that we had to strip out a lot of that. Like now it's like, it takes less than 8 minutes, you know, with the caveat being maybe Stripe. It just depends if like they don't like your identity or something. Like, you know, I can't control that, but so that was one thing.
At some point, ticketing and QR check-in becomes a real wedge feature, not just a side capability. Yeah. What did the market show you that the original roadmap missed? So
what it showed me is that this was an avenue for A, getting us out there and getting exposure, but B, getting us vendors. So it was interesting. It was a really cool thing is by collaborating and by working with other businesses, like through like we've had about 4 or 5 events so far through our platform. And we've done over, 120,000 in transaction revenue, right? And it was crazy, you know, tens of thousands of people come. And then not only like now, like planners have engaged with us, have gotten access exposure, and we're getting traffic, but we're also getting the vendor side of like, there's the opportunity now for businesses that want, like in the catering space specifically, I would say, but even other marketplace stuff like beauty products or whatever, they have their boots there. Now they're engaging with us for the first time, and they're coming on a platform and signing up. And it's so cool because we've been able to like use that as a mechanism of like, hey, now we have all these incredible people to work with, and they're already familiar with us and they already know who we are. And now we have the opportunity to like do great service to them because now they've already made an account and they're already ready, you know, set up and stuff, and they've already paid through us. So if they were wondering like, why the hell would I pay through them? Like, I don't know who these guys are. Sorry for saying that, you know, like now it's like, oh, I've heard of them, you know.
In 2025, we're looking at a two-sided marketplace. You're going up against the Knot and the WeddingWire, both of which have billions in listings and 2 decades of SEO. What makes you think you can actually win in this market today?
So man, that's a great, amazing question. And I think it really comes down to differentiation. Who are you targeting, right? So who are their market audience and who is ours? We are targeting minority groups. We are trying to work with minority groups and community leaders, and particularly starting out with the South Asian community and Muslim community. It's all very trust-based. So because I think a lot of corporate companies have invoked the ire of a lot of people in businesses where they're stealing your data, they're selling it to people. So the privacy aspect isn't there, right? And then now sometimes like, I won't say which company, but there's a particular big, large e-commerce company, right? And they go out and like when I used to do FBA, and they'll like, you'll sell your stuff and they'll go and like just resell the same thing or even talk to the same manufacturing company, right? Yeah. And so this is like a common practice. And I think with us, the big thing is, like as you mentioned, it's all very trust-based and grassroots. And so when we work authentically on a ground level, customer service-based, which from what I've interviewed, when I've talked to other businesses, that they don't necessarily provide at that scale because they don't have the time to. When you become a huge corporate company, you don't have the opportunity to like necessarily go and feel the needs for everybody. You have to do one size fits all. So that one size, if we're going to be doing that, let's try to customize it for a community that really needs it and needs to grow. And there's a lot of businesses that are up and coming and to scale. And so I think that's why we're going to win. Because I certainly like distribution-wise, even just from the Muslim community alone, we're starting in Atlanta. I have connections in Orlando, Dallas, California. Mm-hmm. My team does as well. we could really like grow really well off that. And then through word of mouth, through other things, I think there's like, if our marketing channels are great, I think we can definitely hit other minority communities. Whether you have quinceañeras, you have bar mitzvahs, you have other types of events that maybe we don't provide right now, that we want to get a better understanding of. We're really committed and focused on getting that kind of community outreach authentically, so we can, like, when we get into these markets, we have somebody who's trusted already who's getting in there.
As we're having this conversation today, you're still a full-time senior software engineer at Intrusion. Walk me through what a normal Tuesday looks like, and how do you manage the two together?
Man, it's a good question. Tomorrow's Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. So my day tomorrow. So a typical day is, so I thankfully at this my current it's a startup as well, by the way. So a small person team, 10 people, 10 engineers overall, amazing people. What ends up happening over there is they end up having like one meeting a day. So thankfully, and it's at 10:45. So I have a lot of opportunity prior to, like, I keep the work stuff separate. I make sure I do my work things with a certain segment, make sure that doesn't interfere. So that's like dedicated, locked in. I make sure I deliver the things I need to deliver. And then what I end up doing is weekends and evenings, and then more early mornings, I accommodate like sales meetings. So if I go out to, like, last 3-4 weeks in a row, I go to 3 or 4 sales meetings every week, which has been challenging, you know? So it's like work ends, I dip out, I drive somewhere an hour away or like 45 minutes, and I go with my partner or boss, who, he always finds amazing connections, stuff like that, whatever. And then we go in person, and then we talk to them, and we onboard them, actually. So it's usually pretty exciting. It's like usually not sales, like it comes onboarding right away. It's like, like people just get it. So, and then I have to do marketing shoots every day. I have to do software fixes in engineering, because, like, I'm the only engineer also. So, you know, wear multiple hats, right? So I have to, if there's bug fixes, there's problems, I have to be the one to be able to respond like this and fix something right then and there. And so if I can defer it, like, we have, our team is scaled to like around 5 people now. There's other people now who can finally hop on. So it's like been amazing, because it's been so much before, prior to the last, I would say, month or two. It's been very different. Before, I would tell you that I'm working 80-90 hour weeks, like, just on the business, and then I have my full-time job, and it's like I don't sleep, so you have to give up something. So I just didn't sleep. I was up till 3-4 a.m. every day. Now finally I'm going to sleep at 12. So it's great, you know. It's whatever, like, and it's a great feeling.
Has the acceleration of AI actually helped, especially, like, let's say, for example, you're using Claude Cowork or Claude Code to manage some of these workflows? Has it made your overall workflow easier, at least for Cenvi?
So it has and it hasn't. So I'll give you an example. So I use Cursor primarily, right? So there's no way you don't use AI today. I built a lot of the beginning stuff, like the MVP, like from scratch, and then I started using it. I think because I had that base model, it built out pretty well. It's just so crazy. I'll say this at my other job too with AI, because it's such a buzz thing today. You can probably do something with AI, and you can probably build something, and you might find it like shiny and exciting, like, wow, this, like, it's already done everything. You were talking about scale. Now putting that into a customer's hand where you don't get, like, legally hit or financially hit or something, like something that works predictably, is really crazy. And what I find is, at the edges that I'm testing AI right now, like if I use Cursor, it's become a hindrance as much as it's a help. So it's definitely a help, right? It's like almost like I'm having a junior engineer on my side, but it's a junior engineer that lacks the context of what my business and the logic and the needs. It gets things wrong all the time. And then it's like basically at this level of code and base, it's like hallucinating like crazy. And it's very confident though. It tells you like 100%, oh, you're great. It gaslights me into thinking everything's great. And then it's like not, you know, and then I have to constantly test. So it's increased my output, but it's increased my workload to accommodate that. Everything else has to function and increase in order to accommodate what is bringing me. It's almost like, you know,
it's almost you're basically serving the purpose of validation, essentially, to an extent.
Yeah,
right?
to some degree.
At Intrusion, I mean, does your manager know about your side hustle, or?
He does. Yeah, I told him pretty early on. I told my whole team. They were very, 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 very kind about it. Like, I was really appreciative. They were very supportive because they know how long it takes. They're in a startup themselves, right? They're funded. They're a $10 million company, so they're very well aware of how challenging it is to build a customer base and distribution and make it anything crazy. They have a lot of trust in me, so they know that, you know, like, I'm doing it at certain times. You know, I'm making sure I focus on their outcomes. Yeah, I'm really appreciative. Actually, a lot of them have offered to even help and stuff like that, which is really cool. So I'm very blessed in that because I think I was extremely scared. You don't want anything to, that you do that like impacts your stability and everything, right? Because if I left right now, which I'd love to, yeah, like, no, sorry, not love to, but if I left right now, it would destroy like a lot of things. And I think one of the things that keeps me there, instead of just putting this full time, I don't know if you're gonna ask that, but is the fact that I love the people I work with. They're such nice people, they're so kind. Like I have seldom seen a team this high performing that I've gotten, like I have the ability to learn whatever I want to learn. So whatever like things I want to learn both in business and in terms of like development, I can learn.
Let's say it's a Saturday evening, you have to do work for Cenvi. What do the closest people to you say about you going out to go work on the business?
You probably know that like I might be distracted. I'll bring my laptop along. It's kind of sad. If you go on vacations with me, that's something unfortunately I kind of have. It's like the founder life sounds exciting. You know, you have Instagram, all these influencers like relaxing on the beach and coding, and it's like
When you're not enjoying it. You're there but you're not there.
well, it depends. So I enjoy what I do, so that's great. Like it's kind of like, but I guess at the end of the day, yeah, I want to be there for my family. This is the one things that drives me. I want to be there and not miss out on the moments of my children. So that part I don't enjoy, right? Like and like disappointing others. So that's kind of tough. But I think the more I've been able to be clear with that, with my wife, with friends, the better it's been. When I was ambiguous about it, because I was unsure myself, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll be there for sure, and I'll be in the state, and then it gives false expectations to the people around you. That's when you get destroyed, because then they're like naturally upset. But otherwise, then you're mature and you're acknowledging it. Hey, this is what it is, and then you're asking for accommodation because you certainly need it. I don't think anything I could ever succeed in any business I've tried or anything without the support of the people around me who love me and care for me, especially my wife.
So you created a brand, a content brand called Founder Balance, explicitly about this particular tension. Is it your accountability tool, your marketing funnel for Cenvi, or is it something else entirely?
Above. So it's I have a million hobbies. So people always tell you the novelty is stick with one. Maybe the pattern you're hearing from psychology to like this and that is that I try to do everything. And so I'm like a jack of all trades and master of none maybe, but then there's a few things I'm getting mastery over. And one of the things is like I've liked film and photography for a while, so I'm dying to make something. One of the reasons I haven't is that insecurity feeling. How dare I do this unless I'm this PhD, unless I'm this amazing, top level person, unless I'm a billionaire, right, talking to you. Then I've started thinking of like, well, there's probably a lot of other people building businesses out there, and certainly I'm a lot of founder groups now. There's so many people building their startups, and they're people who are funded pre-revenue, post-revenue like ourselves, and we have a customer base like around of 260 people, right, which is pretty cool. So everyone's at a different scale, and I think that I was just like, why not, let's just go for it and not talk about that struggle, and be authentic about it, because I don't want to be fake about it. That's the thing. Like I don't want to just go and just do it for the marketing purpose. I want to do it so that it gives me the accountability of like, what is my journey like? And holding that dream to somebody else. Because by the time you tell somebody else, now the people expect it out of you. So there's that pressure, but it's a healthy pressure maybe. The other part is I'm hoping it helps me like do the other hobbies and stuff I want to do. Like for example, I tend to consume the responsibility life more than I do my other stuff. So I don't like work out sometimes. Like you always see founder culture or like the hustle culture of like you work out hardcore and you do all the things. No, it definitely like I lose, something misses out. Like and I'm hoping that this is going to help me finally start biking again and kayaking and bow and arrow and all the stuff that I like to do, because it falls in line. It happens to fall in line with my photography, filming background and like things I like to do, but also helps. It's kind of like a circle. So
Is there a specific trigger that's going to tell you when it's time to leave Intrusion and go full time on Cenvi? Revenue threshold, savings runway, customer milestone, any particular date in mind?
that's a great question. So I think it depends on the scale of my team, right? So if the scale of a team and what they got in for, what is their ask, what is their need, I'm very cognizant of that. Of like, I don't want to just be a CEO that it's like only for my own need and my own good, and so therefore, like, I want to make this money and be like, like everyone has their reason for joining an early stage startup. So whatever that team is to accommodate whatever scale we have, and so I'll give you a specific number. Like my number is $1.2 million in profit, not revenue. To match that in revenue, by comparison, it's $10 million, to basically to make the numbers work out. And so I think that if we get there, then I have enough to put back into the business. I have enough to put back into marketing in a way that deserves. I have enough to like hopefully take out an initial maybe salary, and then also for other people as well. Because that's really big. Like I don't want to get in the game of being responsible for somebody's. I've done it before with other businesses. You have to pay employees and everything. That's a big responsibility. I better have the money to back that up. I better be stable enough. So that's kind of the thing. So there better be good traction in that regard of enough people using the business to have enough transaction going through that it's showing me in very strong confidence and stride that I can't afford to do two things. Not because I love my other place. If I could do both, I would, because I've done multiple things in my life in the past. But yeah, that would kind of be the signal that like, hey, I need to transition over and focus on this because the scale of this, I can't fail now. Like I have people depending on me.
So you're not building a generic event software in the abstract. Why do the Muslim community events and local trust networks become a serious proving ground rather than just being a convenient early niche?
So I think it's because in this particular community, it's very much like they may give you a chance if they know you. But if you don't do something right, they'll like, let you know. Yeah, let you know, for sure. And so it's one of those things that like you have as much opportunity as you do the opportunity to fail as well. But I can fail fast and I can fail hard. And I think with business, like any other endeavor, the more, if you're willing to try and at least get yourself out there and you're willing to like constantly improve and get the feedback, that's, I think I believe from my experience, I mean for other businesses, how a business scales. If you don't try enough things, and if you go stagnant, I think stagnancy is only as a result of you not trying enough things to fail. If you don't know the next thing you can try or A/B test, you're not trying hard enough. You're not putting yourself at risk enough.
For a Muslim founder, community can open doors and create pressure at the same time. How do you serve a community without getting trapped by its expectations, politics?
By recognizing that it probably exists, first of all, that you still need to do what you need to do. And just be aware that people like will still have those expectations placed upon you. I think you have to be very clear in what you can offer. I have this tendency where, especially with the community, right? Like, I want to help the masajids, for example, in the community here. I want to be able to offer them ticketing for free, right? I notice a lot of them use, a lot of these different platforms, and they use Eventbrite sometimes, and they're charging they're taking like 25% from them.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll give it to you for free, man. But the thing is that I have that propensity of like, I want to do everything for free for everybody. Yeah. But I have to be really careful because it's like, I want to meet the needs of also people who chose me, who want to invest, who want to grow with me, but also I need to make sure I can handle that load. I'm only one individual engineering right now. So whatever the scale of what I'm promising, it better match up. I don't want it to be words. It has to match the integrity, especially when it comes to finances.
Of course. So. And also there's the idea of like, unfortunately, free cannot pay your bills.
No,
right?
No.
Right, and in scaling something that's totally free takes time.
Yeah. And
to do it right, which is I think where you're coming from, right? Because you want to be able to serve those people effectively and to the level of a son that needs to exist within the Muslim Ummah. A lot of founders use faith as branding. Where does Islam actually restrain you in business, in money, speed, positioning, ego, or even the kinds of trade-offs you refuse to make?
That's a great question. So very early on, I came up with an ethical policy, right? And I brought it to my founders because we had to start thinking about if anyone can sign up to our business, what does that mean? And what kind of sources do we want to be able to receive money from? And we have to make a policy around that. So it was like, for example, one of the first things, for whatever reason, because I grew up and born and raised here in America, is this concept of bachelor parties, right? Yeah. If that's like such a common type of event, I don't know why I'm thinking of like in movies and stuff, right? And so I'm thinking to myself of like, this probably isn't the platform for you if you're looking for a bachelor party in the conventional sense. If you're looking for like, forgive me, a strip club, right? Or a specific alcoholic, like a bar, you probably won't find it on Cenvi. Not probably, so you won't find it on Cenvi because we won't onboard you. Because and the way we are putting that and framing it is we're calling it a family-friendly policy because I think it is. And even in other conservative groups and other religions and other places, if it's not great for your kids to receive marketing or ads around, maybe it might not be great for you to consume or to engage with. So that's kind of how we're handling it. That's actually making us very wary of investors. Very early on, we got into this accelerator called Pete Score. We had the opportunity to talk to some investors. It was very intimidating at first because it was like pre-revenue and it was MVP and it was like, oh man. And people were interested in our vertical of like, we know the market's going this way. We're going to acquire you and or like invest. Then there's this, they specifically asked me that, I noticed you have this ethical friendly policy, and why wouldn't you do this? Why would you stop revenue? And that's this very like basic concept of capitalism of like, if you can make money anywhere, why wouldn't you? And but yeah, we want to make money right. Not it could be right for somebody else. For our type of business, we want our values to help guide us. We don't want to earn a single penny that isn't something that we have earned, A, and B, hopefully something that is unethical from an Islamic paradigm in particular. So
you publicly shared early traction, 167 plus ticket sales, 88 vendor applications, 101 business profiles, first $20,000 in platform revenue, and a Peach Score acceptance. Which of those numbers matters most operationally to you, and which one looked better on paper than it felt in reality?
So on paper, I would say the thing that looked exciting, but it wasn't that crazy, was probably the $20,000 in revenue. And the reason for that is that revenue passing through your system is an indicator, but it doesn't mean like how profitable is your company, right? Yeah. So that's why I mentioned like very openly that, for example, like $10 million need to pass by for me to meet my goal of $1.2 million this year in revenue for our profitability. So there's like huge gap and huge discrepancy. So it's something useful, and I think a lot of people and a lot of founders use it to like share, but it's not the most helpful metric. However, customers, like vendor applications, that was huge. So having those enabled us to have real people to talk to, real people that are signed up, that have engaged with us in some way, that are on our platform, and we can now talk to them for the other things that we provide. And now there's that trust. That's so valuable. Because obviously from among that pool, besides people we know in our network, is the people that we're going to start and have been starting to onboard and reach out to and showing value in. And because we've already had that first thing of like, who are you again? Out of the way, it's so much easier to communicate with them and just try to meet them where they're at.
What is the Cenvi metric from the last 6 months that you're genuinely not proud of?
So marketing is pretty new for us. I think that on our Cenvi page, we probably have around 8 or 9 posts in general. And I think that a lot of that was on the basis of this pressure of content creation. Like I had the creativity, the idea around it. Like we're already so busy with engineering. We're already so busy with doing sales and customer service. Like the actual nuts and bolts of the business, that giving time for distribution and other forms that we need so that people can immediately look us up and be like, what do we do again? They can do that well. Like I think that hasn't been the greatest until recently. We just hired like a genius marketing guy. And he actually owns his own startup. He works for Sony as a music producer from Venezuela. They flew him out there, and like he's a genius guy. He's an influencer. He's traveled to 72 countries. And so he decided to work with us because he wants to grow with us in the business. So I'm very honored by that. So the last 2 videos he produced, for example, have done thousands of views and like incredible by far than anything that I produced, due to time and also due to like knowledge base. It's something that we're still growing out. So that's something I think I was the most like, I knew we needed to do it, but how? And among everything else, where does that fit in?
Public language around Cenvi centers around trust and privacy, but the Play Store listing states that the user data is not encrypted. What is the truth there, and what have you had to tighten since that disclosure period?
No, that's a great question. So first of all, when you're doing a mobile app like Android or iOS, you have to disclose it. So I put that there, that it's not encrypted at this time. So I guess it depends which data. Payment, financial data, we don't keep on our platform. That's all on Stripe. And we did that for a specific reason, is because we don't want any of that data to be taken out. We have a pretty good security posture. We're aiming for SOC 2 compliance, if you're familiar with that. So because we want to work with hotels and we want to work with other corporate companies. We're actually engaging with one really cool corporate company right now. I won't mention it right now because legal purposes. But I'm really excited because they have they're all over the world and they have 72 stores here in the United States. And so our security posture has been really good. And I think that helped me realize of like, in order to go this route, we need even better security paradigms. And so it's just the trade-off of like the flexibility, I would say, of my time as an engineer and developing thus far. It doesn't mean the platform isn't secure, because it is. It's quite secure. We have the proper keys. We're rotating them. We have, you know, everything pretty well locked down based on a vendor and based on the different paradigms we have for the roles and access. But yeah, there's always other layers like encryption, right? For example, so one of the ways we're doing that is keeping those in other places that are SOC 2 compliant, that have that data privacy there for really sensitive data, and then one non-sensitive type of data we have on our platform, and we have the roadmap to get that PI to if there's any remaining, you know, encrypted, basically.
What would you want a skeptical event organizer to know about how seriously you take care of the data encryption gap?
The fact that we have it on a roadmap for, I guess, the level of encryption that Google Play specifically requires. Any piece of data that you get today, so if you do an API call to the back end, or if you go through the front end, everything is encrypted in the sense of like transparent. Like you can't actually see the data unless you have like obviously the token of the access, but also even if you were to try to like steal it, you can't like necessarily see the payload of like this particular vendor. Like so, there's a lot of things that are like removed. The only place that's not encrypted is in the database itself for some parts, and I think the only thing that I know is basically like emails. So if you have, and the kind of emails I'm talking about are like vendor emails that are already public facing. So the data that we have that is encrypted anyway is the data that is like public facing info.
Who was the first person who told you Cenvi was a bad idea or wouldn't work, and what did they say?
Who is a fun question. I can answer it. He's very popular though, and you know, so there was a meeting call for a event that a lot of people may know him as a CEO lawyer, Ali Awad, right? And he gave us this opportunity to kind of pitch him a little bit. Amazing guy, you know, very talented, speaks up on a lot of social justice issues, very like a lot of weight, you know, so his advice is really awesome. And he handles things at a scale that's different, like millions of dollars per event anyway, and stuff like that, hundreds of millions. Yeah. So his perspective was valuable for that scale, but we had to be a little nuanced about it. So basically what he told us, first of all, when we talked to him about using us for ticketing for a Muslim nonprofit, like kind of Shark Tank type of event he was trying to have, you know, we were thinking of doing ticketing for them, have the sponsorships, everything go through us. And I think what we had in our platform didn't quite fit the need. So there was that discussion of like, do we now change what we have built to fit this? And it was quite an underhaul. And so we had to think about it because the opportunity is so great. But then it's like, then it strays away from kind of our mission, what we're trying to do. And so ultimately we decided not to go for it. He felt that the different products and the different things we have, the features, like so we have contracting, we have invoicing, we have ticketing. He felt that was too much. And so at the time, we weren't very well polished in practicing of how to pitch and to communicate what we are in terms of all event, you know, ecosystem to him in that way. And so his feedback to us was more about, you know, focus on one thing good. Everything else should be a spin-off product. So for Cenvi ticketing, do that. Cenvi, you know, contracts, put that somewhere else and focus on the one thing. It's been pretty helpful because I think everything else has been a mechanism in order to, by which, you know, we've been getting some traction and moving forward and finding our product market fit. But I think booking has been like the primary booking paradigm of the planner to vendor booking has been our core thing. And so it just helped us refocus back on that.
Sort of reminds me of like big ERP systems, right? They have a core system and then they have ancillary systems that plug into it, right?
Yeah.
The same idea and concept, so very interesting. For Muslim entrepreneurs listening who have a salary, a family, a half-built idea, what's the honest test for whether they're being prudent or just hiding behind caution?
I think that, you need to have something to show for it, right? So you need to build something in a well thought out way. I think you should definitely do product interviews. They were fantastic for us. Real people in the space that you're looking for that could be potentially your customers and get their buy-in on it. And hopefully through networking or you reach out through social events. That's probably a great way I'd recommend. And see if they think this idea is crazy and how easily is it understood. Because unlike other businesses I've done in the past, you try to explain something and it's too complicated for somebody and they're like, they check out. And with this, it's kind of like an easier thing to understand, like an event, okay, cool, or like a catering business, whatever. And I think see if your idea can pass that test and if you can explain it in that way, and see the reaction to that. And as you iterate on that, one amazing advice that one of my really dear friends, his name is Rafi Saeed, he founded this startup called Rounds, which is doing incredible, and I think is doing millions in revenue, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he advised that you should just go ahead and start. Go ahead and put it out there. And so this concept really of if you create an idea and you don't do enough things to test against it, you are definitely going to fail because it's all in your head. So a lot of, especially in the engineering world, a lot of people, what they do is sit at home, they build the thing, they don't show it to anybody. Get it out there, no one's going to know. So go ahead, show it out there, even with the smallest MVP of the smallest thing, and see what people say. And that's what he did, and he got so much cool traction from that, and ideas and advice from his peers and people in the community. It's embarrassing as hell. It's really awkward to do it. That's what you should do.
What has building Cenvi taught you about where trust actually comes from? Product quality, responsiveness, reputation, community presence, execution under stress, or something else entirely altogether?
What I've been noticing, and I've always felt this with any kind of grassroots or community stuff, is trust really comes when you show up where people are at. So where they're at in their business, what they need today, and then you actually show up physically in person. So the more hoops and hurdles you have to make someone else go through to find you and to do certain things, the less they like you or trust you. And so like let's say something got us the conversation, the hustle, like in the way we approached it in their terms, how does it benefit them? How does it relate to them? That was huge. And showing up to their facility and looking at it and doing a little like homework, like what are they all about? When did they get started? Why and stuff has helped us tremendously and build that trust, because we have to actually show an interest versus like, hey, we're just trying to make money off you. That's not the case. We want to grow together. So
Cenvi works at the deepest level. What are you really building? A software company, an infrastructure layer for communities' commerce, a training ground for a different kind of Muslim leadership?
That is a great question. So I have a very, I got soapbox about this. I have a very interesting thing, but so the core thing is to be our Muslim infrastructure and infrastructure for nonprofits and underrepresented groups. I want it to be a means by which people can scale their businesses, show up and be able to take their involvement in other facets of the community to a next level. So whether you're a masajid or whether you're a catering business or whether you're a venue and you want to have more visibility and eyes on it, but you also want to interact with your other fellow peers and see how can you raise them up and also be in those spaces, build that trust, be in those conversations. We want to be that infrastructure for you specifically. And I think, that's it. So if you think about the Facebooks of the world, Airbnb, DoorDash, why don't we have that many facilities like that? There's Replit, there's places, but I haven't sent this to anybody because it's embarrassing in the sense that people look at you a little differently. But I do want to build to that scale. Not because of financial freedom, because I think that you can get that by far, I think significantly earlier, especially if your house is paid off or other things of that nature. I want to be an institution that other Muslim business owners, other places, other employees, they can come and join. And that's what I want to be.
What's a moment in the last year where your deen, your Islam, your religion shaped Cenvi?
I think that definitely the example of the investor stuff. There was an investor, I can't mention who because we signed an NDA thing. I'm not sure how that worked actually. But anyway, we found the reach score, and they were talking to us, and we pitched them, and they wanted to invest $200,000, which for us is super meaningful, in exchange for 15% equity, which is a lot of equity at the time. They're I didn't know that, at the time. I was like, okay, cool. I was like, what could we do with it? And I think they're the ones that asked me explicitly, why wouldn't you use bars and why wouldn't you get strip clubs, specifically? And that's kind of when we had the signal of I don't know if we're comfortable about this, because I don't think I understood at the time, which I do now through a lot of mentorship and stuff, is that when someone invests in you, in a sense, it's almost like a boss, and it's they can kind of own you. It depends on the relationship, and so their ethical standards and their values really matter, right? And so that gave me a new scale, a new concept of thinking of in a lot of ways, people might just take the money and be cool, but there's that huge responsibility. And so anything to do with money for me, there's such a huge ethical responsibility for it, where you need to be, the way you conduct yourself, the way you operate has to align with your mission and your values. And so that has shaped that aspect. Same thing with YC, actually. We had somebody who was, he owns a $50 million company, or he has raised $50 million for his startup. It's in the financial fintech space, and it's a cryptocurrency company. And he gave us advice really early on, and he gave us a referral to YC. Everyone, is in the startup space, they're like, oh, YC, it's so great. And he was like pretty confident based on the story and stuff, you can get in. And then, it was just kind of this concept of like, if we go in, the first thing I thought of was, who would I have to meet? Like I was like, what if I don't want to say certain names, but obviously there's certain people out there that they're maybe great at business. I'm not sure how they got great, who they had to destroy or what they had to do. But there's other, people call it politics, but other ethical concerns, other things that they do around the world that I don't want to be purview to, and I want to be in the same room or space as them. Ideally, especially in terms of business context where they own my family or me financially. So I didn't want to be compromised that way. And so even that excitement, where when I told my co-founders, we were all very excited. We're like, man, let's go to Cali. Let's, we're gonna get this done. And it was just kind of this thing early on of like, I don't know if we should. I don't know if we should. And I think that was very unconventional compared to a lot of other people we knew. If they had the same opportunity, 100% they would go. And
the other piece of this is that usually the safe agreement that YC makes you sign is almost semi-permanent, meaning that you would have to basically be attached at the hip forever. Unless you figure out a way to somehow buy them out, which is very difficult as well, right? Maybe they don't want to divest their shares.
Right.
So then how do you separate that, right? So they want to be a part of it, and unfortunately, a safe agreement, by the way, for the audience, is a simple agreement for future equity, right? That's normally like a term sheet, and they basically say, oh, we think the value of this company is this, and when it converts, they'll be able to get a certain percentage of equity. If a 24-year-old Muslim who just graduated and is trying to decide between a safe job and by building something unique, and here's only one answer from this episode, what do you need them to take away from this?
I think it depends on their level of experience. I think experience is really big. I think if you're going to play the game of, like, stability is very overrated or underrated. Underrated, okay. And I think that if you're going to be somebody, if you're at 24 years old and you have some level of savings that you're willing to risk, that is an incredible time to go ahead and take the risk and go take the plunge. I think it's really great to have a co-founder. So whatever skill sets you lack, you own some, and find a good co-founder that has other skill sets. So I think the ambition's good. I think the stability, there needs to be some saving or something to back that up, in my opinion, because the kind of comfort and stability it gives you. Like, for example, the fact that I can building this, and even though it's a lot of time, that I have a full-time job, the fact that my needs are being met, especially for the people that I'm taking care of, that's huge. Because oftentimes I see people all the time, there's a huge regret that, you did play around in your 20s, but then you're kind of stuck. And it's a good time to play, but like, it's cool to build something for yourself as well. So build your stability with finances, and then like try to put that towards something.
Where can people find you on social media? If they want to learn more about Cenvi, where should they go?
Instagram, we have our Cenvi page, and as Facebook as well. And then Founder Balance is my personal brand, where I'm talking about struggling of, balancing being a father with being a founder.
Any future endeavors you'd like to share with the listeners?
Not at this time. Unless I start my singing career. That's always something I'm thinking about. But
I mean, you were a great singer during college, and even to this day, I believe you still are a great singer. You sing for your children.
I appreciate it. Your voice changes really hardcore, but I'm really hoping to make jingles, or not jingles, but like something. I want to make it like in Cenvi. Like, I try to keep all my hobbies and skill sets in one area, so I try to combine everything. So I'm like, if I can make a song or do something that can tie back to the business, that'll be great. So maybe you'll see a song by me or something that I'll create on one of the two channels. We'll see if the team gives me green light and approval, if it matches the quality vibe.